I had my son when I was 22. I had just come home from a deployment in Iraq when I got pregnant. His father and I had already been dealing with significant relationship struggles, but I was truly excited to be pregnant. I wanted to be a mother. I believed that I could be a good mother. But less than 5 months into his life, I already was feeling incredibly overwhelmed. His father was deployed, and I was at home with my mother and grandmother, and I was trying to figure out how to raise a baby with colic. I almost hit him once. He was screaming and crying. I remember feeling my hand raised, going from tapping his back to calm him to my nervous system so wrecked, just feeling like I was gonna strike. His cries were piercing my skull. My teeth were clenched. I was so lost at how to help him. That moment changed everything. It was the first crack that eventually led me years later across the ocean and away from my children on a journey to find myself. And what I discovered, it truly changed not just my life, but how I look at life in general. And today, I'm sharing that journey with you. Welcome to the Kim Circle podcast, where we explore the intersection of conscious living, shadow work, and authentic transformation. I'm your host, Jessa Francis, trauma-informed yogi, shadow work coach, and your guide through the messy, beautiful work of coming home to yourself. If you're new here, a Kim is a Gaelic word meaning sanctuary, a sacred space of protection and peace. And that's exactly what we're creating together in this community, a place where you can do the work of self-discovery without judgment, where vulnerability is honored, where transformation is possible. Each week, we dive into topics like conscious consumption, generational programming, shadow integration, and what it really takes to live an awakened, authentic life free from self-sabotage and old patterns. And today I'm doing something that I have been both excited and terrified to do. I'm talking about my book. Not just talking about it, but talking about why it exists, what writing it did to me, and why I think it might change something in you too. The book is called Writing My Way Home: How Memoir Writing Became My Most Powerful Shadow Work Tool. And that title, it's not poetic exaggeration, it's literally what happened. So grab your tea, your adaptogenic elixir, whatever you need, and settle in. Because I'm about to get really honest with you about what it took to write this, what I discovered in the process, and why memoir might be the most powerful shadow work tool that you have never considered. Let's dive in. I need to tell you about a moment that I have never shared publicly before. Well, it's in the book, but I've never said it out loud like this. When my son was a baby, colicky, screaming, inconsolable, I almost hit him. My hand was raised, trembling in the air, and I caught myself. I looked down at his little red face, completely helpless, and I looked at my hand, suspended there, ready to strike him, and I thought, how can this be me? This can't be me. But it was. I laid him in his crib, still crying, and I walked out of that room, slid down the wall in the hallway, and just shook. That's what they tell you to do, right? Walk away. You put the baby down in a safe space, and you walk away. But no one tells you about the shame that follows you after that moment. No one tells you what it feels like to almost become someone you don't recognize. That moment, that terrifying, horrible moment with this tiny little baby in my hands that I was ready to hit, that was the first crack in my foundation. The first time I realized something is very, very wrong. And it's not just my marriage. It's not just motherhood being hard. It's me. I didn't know how to be okay. I didn't know how to fill my own cup. I didn't even know who I was underneath all the roles that I had been performing. And that realization, that sent me on a decade-long journey that eventually led me across an ocean, away from my children, to find myself, which I know sounds dramatic and maybe a little selfish. And trust me, I have judged myself for it more than you ever could. But here's what I've learned. You cannot give what you don't have. And I didn't have myself. So let me back up and give you some context. By the time I was 26, I had been married for 6 years and had 2 kids and was utterly convinced that I was broken. I couldn't make decisions, like, at all. I was trying to figure out if I should stay in my very unhappy marriage or leave. And I just couldn't. Every time I thought I knew the answer, I'd second guess myself. I'd spin in circles asking, am I thinking clearly? Can I trust myself? What if I'm wrong? What if I ruin everything? And underneath all of that questioning was this deeper, more terrifying belief. I don't trust myself. Not just about the marriage, about everything. What I wanted, who I was, what was right for me. I had so much self-doubt that I couldn't see straight. And the worst part, I didn't even understand where it came from. My parents loved me. My family, my whole family supported me. I had been told my whole life that I was smart, capable, beautiful. So why did I feel so not enough? That question haunted me. And I knew that until I could answer it, I'd never be able to trust myself enough to make the decisions that I needed to make. So I started writing. Now, I've been writing my whole life. Poetry, journal entries, little stories, but this was different. I started writing memoir. And if you've never done this, if you've never sat down and really written your story, not just journaled about your day, let me tell you what happens. You start seeing things you couldn't see while you were living them. Because when you write memoir, you're not just remembering, you're reconstructing. You're stepping back into scenes from your past as both the person who lived them and the person who's observing them now. It creates this dual consciousness. You're in it and watching it at the same time. And that's actually where the magic happens, right? And I've talked about that witness consciousness before, but that came, trust me, much later. So I wrote an essay about my marriage, about my confusion, about not being able to trust myself. And when I read it back, I saw something I hadn't seen before. My self-doubt was everywhere, in every sentence, every question, every thought. It wasn't just, I'm having trouble deciding about my marriage. It was, I fundamentally do not trust myself as a human being. And seeing that, actually seeing it on the page, undeniable, changed everything. Because now I had a new question. Why don't I trust myself? Not should I stay or should I go, but where did this belief come from? And that question, that's what led me to write the second essay. And the second essay in this book is called Reading the Fine Print. And it's about all of the invisible programming I inherited, specifically from the women in my family. As I wrote about my childhood, about watching my mother work herself to exhaustion, about listening to my grandmother call herself stupid, about absorbing the message that to be a good woman, you had to make yourself small, I started seeing the pattern. My mother told me I was beautiful. but she called herself ugly. My mother told me I could do anything, but she gave up her dreams. My mother told me I could do anything, but she gave up her own dreams. My mother told me to be brave, but she made herself small. And here's a line from that essay that changed everything for me. When hearing one thing and seeing another, we tend to do as we are shown rather than we are told. I didn't learn to doubt myself because someone told me I wasn't good enough. I learned it by watching the women I loved deny themselves over and over again. I learned it by absorbing the fine print underneath every spoken message. Work hard, but you'll never work hard enough. Be beautiful, but you'll never be beautiful enough. Take care of others, but never yourself. Stay small so the men in your life can feel big. That was the programming. And once I saw it, once I traced it back to its source, I could finally start to uninstall it. But knowing where it came from didn't make it easier. Actually, it made it harder. Because now I had to face the truth. I had built my entire adult life, my marriage, my identity as a mother, everything, on a foundation of not enough. And that meant I had to make some really hard choices. The third essay is called The Runaway Mother. And it's exactly what it sounds like. After years of struggling with my marriage, with motherhood, with my own identity, I made the decision to leave my 3 children for a year and go to Scotland to get my master's degree in creative writing. And I know how that sounds. Believe me, I've heard it all in my own head. What kind of mother leaves her children? How selfish can you be? Your kids needed you and you chose yourself. Yeah, I did. Because here's what I finally understood. I couldn't be the mother that they needed while I was drowning. I had poured from an empty pitcher for so long that there was nothing left. I was teaching them through my actions, not my words, that you sacrifice yourself completely for others. That your needs don't matter. That to be good, you have to be small. And I couldn't do that anymore. So I left. I put my babies down and I walked away. And in Scotland, alone, across an ocean from everything and everyone I knew, I wrote. I wrote about my childhood, my programming, my marriage, my failures as a mother. I excavated everything. And you know what I discovered? I was right in my belief that I am a mother. Motherhood is a huge part of who I am, but I'm also so much more than that. I'm an extrovert who needs social connection. I'm an artist who needs creative expression. I'm an adventurer who needs to explore. And I'm a writer who needs to tell stories. And I can be all of those things and be a good mother. But I couldn't see that until I stepped away, until I wrote my way back to myself. Okay, so why am I telling you all of this? Why did I take these 3 incredibly vulnerable, painful essays and put them in a book for the world to read? Because I want you to see what's possible. I want you to see that memoir isn't just storytelling. It's shadow work in its purest form. When you write your story, when you really excavate your past, examine your beliefs, witness yourself with compassion, you start to see. You start to see the patterns that you've been repeating. You see the beliefs you inherited without choosing them. You see where your fears came from. You see why you do what you do. And once you can see it, it can heal it. This book isn't just my story, it's a framework. After each essay, I break down the shadow work that happened on the page. I show you what became visible through the writing process. I decode the patterns, the programming, the transformation. Because I want you to understand this isn't magic, it's a process. And it's a process you can use too. If you've been feeling lost in your roles, struggling to trust yourself, if you're tired of repeating the same patterns in relationships, if you don't know who you are, your story holds the answers that you are looking for. Your story is your roadmap home to yourself. So let me tell you specifically what you would get when you buy Writing My Way Home. First, you get 3 complete memoir essays. Number 1, Decisions Determine Destiny. And that's where I am stuck in confusion, spinning in circles, unable to trust myself, unable to make a decision about my marriage. The second, Reading the Fine Print. It's where I trace my self-doubt back through the generations of women and finally understand the invisible programming that had shaped me. And then 3, The Runaway Mother, where I made the hardest decision of my life, and I discover who I am when I'm not performing for others. But here's where it gets really powerful. After each essay, there's a section where I decode what just happened. I show you what patterns became visible through the writing, what beliefs cracked open, what shadow material could finally be examined, what questions you might ask about your own story. Plus, there's an introduction that explains what shadow work actually is, why memoir writing is such a powerful tool for it, the specific mechanisms that make it work, and how to approach your own story with this framework. And then a conclusion that ties it all together and invites you to take the next step, whether that's writing your own memoir or working with me to guide you through the process. This book is for you. If you feel like you don't know who you are, if you're tired of second guessing every decision, if you keep repeating the same patterns, especially in your relationships, if you feel like an imposter even when you're succeeding, if you've lost yourself in your roles, mother, wife, daughter, employee, if you know something needs to change, but you don't know what, or if you're ready to understand where your beliefs come from, or if you want to stop just knowing you have issues, right? And actually heal them. But let me tell you, this book is not for you if you want any sort of surface level feel-good affirmations. If you're not willing to look at uncomfortable truths about yourself, if you're looking for someone to tell you what to do instead of helping you actually discover it for yourself, if you're not ready to take responsibility for creating change in your life. Because here is the thing. This work is hard. Shadow work is hard, but it's also the most transformative work that you will ever do. Some of you might be wondering, okay, but what do I do with this? I read your story, I understand the process, and now what? Great question. Here's what I hope happens. After reading this book, you start looking at your own story differently. You start asking different questions. Not what's wrong with me, but where did I learn to think this way? Not why can't I just get over this, but what is this pattern trying to show me? And not why don't I trust myself, but who taught me not to? And maybe, just maybe, you sit down and you start writing. Not journaling about your day, but really writing. Reconstructing scenes from your past, examining your beliefs, witnessing yourself. And if you do that, if you really commit to the process, you will be amazed at what becomes visible. But here's the other thing. Some of you will read this and think, I want to do this work, but I need support. And I need someone to hold space for me. And I need guidance. And if that's you, I'm here. My coaching programs are built around this exact process, using memoir and shadow work to help you understand your identity, trust yourself, and transform your life into something authentic and aligned. The book is the introduction, the invitation. Working together is where we go deep. So here's what I want you to do. Go get the book. It's available on Amazon right now. It's less than the cost of a fancy coffee. And I promise you, it will give you more than just a caffeine buzz. It will give you a new way of understanding yourself, a framework for transformation, permission to choose yourself, and hope that change is actually possible. I put 5 years of my life into this book, not because I'm slow, but because I had to live it first. I had to do the work, make the mistakes, have the breakthroughs, and come out on the other side before I could show you the path. And now I'm handing it to you. So you can find it in the show notes or on my website or in my Instagram bio. I made it really easy to find because I want this in your hands. And after you read it, I want to hear from you. DM me on Instagram, send me an email, leave a review. Tell me what resonated with you, what surprised you, what became visible for you, and what are you going to do next? Because here's the truth, your story matters. Your story, not just mine. Not just mine. Your story, not just mine. And if reading my story helps you see yours more clearly, then every vulnerable word that I wrote was worth it. You know, when I started writing these essays years ago, I had no idea where they would lead. I just knew I was drowning. I knew I needed answers, and I knew that writing had always been the way that I made sense of the world. What I didn't know was that the very act of writing would be the thing that saved me. Not therapy, not self-help books, not affirmations or meditations or any other tools that I had tried. Writing my story, really excavating it, examining it, witnessing it, that's what changed everything. And if it worked for me, it can work for you too. So go get your copy. It's available on Amazon right now. Just search my name, Jessa Francis, Writing My Way Home, or get the link in the show notes. Read it with a pen in your hand. Underline the parts that hit you. Write in the margins. Dog-ear the pages. And then start writing your own story. Because I promise you, your story is waiting to show you something. Something about who you are, where you came from, and who you're becoming. And that's something, that's where freedom lives. All right, my loves, before we go, a few things. First, if this episode resonated with you, please take a screenshot, share it to your Instagram stories, tag me at Jessa Francis. I love seeing your reflections and hearing what landed for you. And honestly, your shares help other people find this work who really need it. Second, if you want to dive deeper into shadow work and memoir writing, I have a few ways we can work together. You can join the Kim Circle membership, where we gather monthly for new moon ceremonies, shadow work programming, integration practices, and so much more. This is your sanctuary, a place to do the work in community. Or if you're ready for one-on-one support, I offer private coaching, where we use memoir writing and shadow work to help you understand your identity, break generational patterns, and create an authentic life that actually feels like yours. You can learn more about both of these options at thekimcircle.com. All the links are in the show notes. Third, If you haven't already, make sure that you're subscribed to this podcast so you never miss an episode. We release new conversations every week, and trust me, you're going to want to be here for what's coming. And finally, if you're loving this podcast, the best way to support it is to leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It takes 2 minutes, and it helps more people find this work. I read every single review, and your words genuinely fuel this mission. I also want to remind you that you can follow my other work. For alcohol-free beverage consulting and my work in the conscious consumption space, you can find me at untoxicated.world on Instagram, and you can follow my Substack, jessafrancis.substack.com. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for doing this brave, messy, beautiful work with me. Remember, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're just programmed. And that programming that can be changed. I'm Jessa Francis, and this is the Kim Circle Podcast. I'd like to offer you a deep inhale in. Exhale out. Breathe, my friends. I'll see you next week for another conversation about coming home to yourself. Until then, stay curious, stay honest, keep writing your way home. Love you. Mean it. Bye.